Aloha and welcome to this week's video. So this is part 2 of me making the straight razor. So if you saw the last video or part 1, I completely broke and demolished the straight blade on accident. I've since cut out a new one. I cut it out with just a basic shape. I am going to be doing some of the same design patterns that I did in the original, but the overall shape of this one is fairly basic. I did leave it a lot thicker this time. So last time, if you remember, it was very thin and it broke at the handle. It shattered and then it shattered again at the pivot point. This bill is actually a lot thicker of a bill. It's probably from a larger overall build than the original piece. It was a little bit unfortunate. I needed to cut up a new bill for this, but I really wanted to finish this piece, so that's okay. So I have the knife mostly worked out, and right now I'm just going back and forth between sanding the blade and sanding the handle material just to get everything into place. And then I'm going to be putting in the same notch work that I did on the original one. Now on the original one, I actually did some of that notch work with a grinder. It didn't quite come out the way that I was really wanting it to, and so this time I filed it in, and I think the file work ended up looking substantially better. Just the angles, I was able to get crisper and cleaner angles, and then when I went to sand it, I was able to sand it a lot easier, and so I think it overall just turned out better, which is actually not uncommon. Whenever I break something and then have to fix it, I tend to make it a little bit better the second time, just because I've learned from mistakes on the first one. Now on the blade section of this, you're not going to be able to shave with it. It's not going to be that sharp. I can't get the hollow grind like you would on a regular straight blade. So on a straight razor, you have a hollow grind and you have a very, very thin blade, so that you have really just one taper. You don't have multiple edges. But I can't do that with the swordfish bill, because as you sand past the exterior bone, you get to the interior bone, which is a lot more brittle, a lot more porous, and it just doesn't hold any edge. And so I'm kind of limited as to how sharp I can make it, but I'm leaving the edge section with that exterior bone, so I can still get it a pretty nice sharp-ish edge. So at least it feels like it would bite, but it's not actually that sharp. The next step that I have here, now that I've sanded the whole piece down to 220, is going to be putting in the pivot. Now this little pivot joint here is actually made of bone. So I took a piece of antler bone that I had left over, and I shaped it down to fit in that section there as the pivot joint. And then I'm using some thicker super glue. So this is kind of a thicker viscous glue, so it doesn't run as fast. It'll just fill in around, and then I'm using this accelerant spray to harden it really rapidly. So I'm doing that for two reasons. One, so that I can keep working on it, but primarily I actually don't want that super glue to drip down too far, because I don't want the glue to adhere to the blade. I just want it to adhere to the scales. Now on a traditional piece, you would use probably some type of pin that you could remove, so that you can finish the whole blade separately. You can finish the handle, the scales, and then you put it together when it's all done. Because I don't have any way of taking that pin apart, I kind of have to do it all together, which makes it a little bit more of a challenge to finish sanding as well as to oiling the piece, but that's just kind of part of it. I am going to be sanding the edge of the blade all the way up to 800 grit. That's really not for sharpening purposes. That's really just more so that I can make sure I have a nice straight edge, and it also is going to make a strong color differential between the blade and the spine, and I think that'll look really nice, and it'll give it a nice smooth texture to the touch. Obviously you can't see it through the video, but it'll feel very smooth. So now that I've finished with the blade, I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding the handle to 320, and then I can oil it. Now I made a mistake. Either my camera flipped out and didn't start recording, or I forgot to hit the record button. Either or, I wasn't able to record me oiling the piece. I just have the very end of oiling the piece, but you can still get a good look at it. The contrast between that dark blue epoxy and the coal wood I think just looks amazing. I love the way that that turned out. I love the contrast in colors between the spine of the blade and the edge of the blade, which you'll see here in just a second. And then I really like the pivot on there. It spins around nice and cleanly. There's a little bit of a lock as it comes around, but it's not bad. It actually makes it feel better in the hands. And then here's out in the natural light. You can really see that curly koa. You can see that dark blue, almost like a space look. It looks really nice on the epoxy. And the blade actually turned out beautiful. I love the way that the blade turned out. It's a little bit thicker than the previous one, but I think it works great. And it feels really good in the hand as well. This was an absolute ton of fun. I really enjoyed making this piece. I wanted to make one for a long time. It would be awesome to make it so that you could shave with it. I probably have to seal it with epoxy and hardener to do that, but I don't have the tools for that. So for right now, it's more just a fun collector's piece. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun with this piece. If you liked it, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see me make next. I have a lot of fun projects coming up. Mahalo. See you next time.